And I remember when I first started going to church, how there was a lot of stuff in my life that I feel like didn't really apply to church stuff. There were a lot of places where I didn't really want to let God in, and even more things that I didn't really feel like were his territory. Now, we talked about that a little bit with, the idea of your kingdom come, your will be done. Like, we got to make Jesus king of everything, right? Like, if there's some part of my life that I haven't given over to him yet, then I need to give him control. And it's easy to catch those things when I think about the big deals in my life, like, the kind of questions like, who was I gonna marry? Or, who was I dating? Or who was I thinking about that? Where was I gonna go to school? What am I gonna do with my life? God, what do you want me to do with this? Or when I think about sins or that kind of thing, it's easy to remember and pray about and seek God. I don't always want to give him control of those things, I admit. But it's easier to recognize those are things that God should have a say in, should have control over. But when it comes to like really small, little things, it's a lot harder. It can seem like maybe that thing's too little to bother God about. Maybe that thing's not a big enough deal to bring it to him and focus that on him. Or even more, I know I've heard some of you guys, and I felt this way too, somehow somebody along the line taught a bunch of us that it's not okay to pray for yourself, that you shouldn't pray for yourself. And even when you ask for prayer requests, I don't want to make this about me. So, I guess end world hunger and like world peace, that'd be great. No. Why would you think that you can't pray for yourself? Everything is spiritual. Everything is meant to be sacred. Everything is holy. Everything has both a physical and a spiritual component. There's nothing that's excluded from that. And so like when I was first becoming a Christian, I really did this compartmentalized piece a lot. And I would be like, all right, well, I go to church and I do the church thing on Sundays. And when I'm in church, I'm churchy. But then when I go out afterward, party, let's go. But that's not how it's supposed to be. See, and in this prayer, as Jesus is teaching us to pray, I think part of what he's trying to teach us is there's no part of your life that shouldn't be directed towards God. There's no part of your life that's too small for him. There's no part of your life that's insignificant to him or doesn't matter. And in fact, like if we really look at how this prayer, this Lord's Prayer that Jesus taught us, if we look at how it goes, it covers absolutely everything. See, the first few weeks of this, we've been covering the big parts that are about God and his greatness and his kingdom. It takes us to the highest places in heaven, right? Our Father in heaven. You can find this in Matthew 6. Our Father in heaven, right? The highest heights. Hallowed be your name. You're holy and set apart. You're so big and right and glorious, way up there, right? Your kingdom come and let your will be done on earth just as it is in heaven. And suddenly we're talking about all this big greatness up in the sky, up in the heavens. And now we're bringing it down here to where we live. Let your kingdom come and happen right here. And then he shifts gears. And today we are talking about give us today our daily bread. All of a sudden, we've been talking about these holy, wonderful, big things, your kingdom and your holy name and your heavenly seat. And now we're saying, I need bread or I'm gonna die. I need the most basic things, food, shelter, water, just to get through my day, just to survive it. And still, that is something holy and spiritual and meaningful that God cares about and can speak into. And then that helps us transition in this prayer from the greatest things to the meaningful things we need now, even down to our sin and the worst parts of us, our brokenness. And the thing is that there's no part of our lives this side of eternity that doesn't involve the part of us that is an eternal soul that is called to live with God forever. The part of us that is super broken and sinful and just full of terrible, broken, wretched things. And then right in between is all the stuff that doesn't seem like it matters, but really it's all still part of the same thing. It's all part of our life and our heart and our soul the way we always have been. It's all of it. It's never just one piece of it. There's no part of your life that's not worth praying about. There's no part of your life that's not worth taking to God or giving over to God and letting him influence and lead it. And I know it's easy to lose track of that. I know it's easy to give that up or feel guilty about somehow asking for prayer for yourself like that's wrong. In fact, it's completely the opposite. Jesus cares so much about you. He wants you to bring even the smallest, tiniest things right to him and say, God, can you deal with this? Can you handle this? Can you do something with it? And he says, yes. Yes, give that to me too, and I got you. And so I want you to, as we get into the rest of the message, before we get to it, take a couple of moments right now with the people around you or just by yourself. Drop this in the chat with us. Are there things in your life that you feel like are too small or too normal or too meaningless to bring to God? So, what things in your life are generally, in your mind, too normal for God? Is it that maybe you just feel guilty about trying to pray for yourself and you feel like, I know I shouldn't be praying for me, or I think I know, which really, it's okay. You should ask for prayer for yourself. You should pray for the things you need. We are absolutely supposed to come to God with those things. And if anybody tells you different, just point them back at Jesus here in Matthew 6. In fact, as we think about those things, like I want to read you something from Matthew 6, from that same part that shows not only does God care, and not only is he okay with us asking for it, but when you ask, he promises to take care of us, and we don't need to worry about all these things. And so one of the pieces about asking is we can also give up our care about that. Check this out. In Matthew 7, I want to go there first. In Matthew 7, part of the same Sermon on the Mount that the Lord's Prayer is found in, he says this: which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? If he asks for a fish, you'd give him a snake. If you then, though you're evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. He says, you need to do normal good things for each other. And even more, when you ask God about it, he will give you good, normal, necessary things. Ask for a fish. You're not going to get a snake. Ask for bread. You're not going to get a stone. God is going to take care of you. He knows you need stuff. He does. He's aware of it. And if you ask for it, he takes good care of you. He doesn't abandon you. He doesn't forget that you need it. We don't need to worry about it. We don't need to be like, oh God, I don't know what I'm going to wear. I don't know what I'm going to eat. I don't know what I'm going to do. And from the same perspective, God, give us this day our daily bread. Give me what I need to get through my day today. I know you are the almighty, holy, wonderful, awesome, huge King of the universe. And still, I also know that I get to come to you and just ask, hey, enormous, giant, wonderful King, God, Yahweh, master of the universe, where am I going to eat? What am I going to wear? What should I do today? How should I live? Will you be with me and lead me in these things? Those aren't too small to ask for God. In verse 23 of chapter 6 in Matthew, he says, therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you eat or drink, or your body, what you wear. Isn't life more than food and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or stow away in barns, and yet your Father feeds them. Aren't you much more valuable than a bird? Aren't you more valuable than a bird? Like, you know that, right? You matter to God more than just a bird does. And he takes care of them. He gives them what they need. They have feathers and junk. Look at rabbits and stuff. Like, sure, they're cute, but like, dogs or whatever, like animals, like they grow more fur in the winter. Like God knows they need to be warm. They shed all that stuff in the summer because he knows it's too hot for it. He takes care of them and he set them up to have what they need to just be able to live comfortably and healthy. Don't you think he knows you? Don't you think that the same God who is the God of the universe, he notices you, he knows what you need? You don't have to worry about these things. By worrying, what can you add to your life? You can't add one moment to your life by doing this, by concerning yourself with these things, but also don't just ignore them because they don't matter. Ignore them, or don't worry about them. Don't ignore them. Don't worry about them. Because God is fully aware that you need this stuff. God is fully aware that you have lots of needs, and he is willing to meet them. He's willing to be there with you in them. He's willing to walk you through them. God is and always has been a good father to us, a good shepherd for us, somebody who takes good care of his people, of the ones placed in his care. And each one of us who declares faith in Jesus, each one of us who says, God is my king, each one of us are part of his family or part of his flock. And in Psalm 23, we read about what it means that God cares for us. He says, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters and refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Listen to how basic those things are. I have no lack. I have what I need. Not I have abundant everything. Just like, I don't need more stuff. God has taken care of me. He is concerned with me. He knows me, and I've got everything I need because I know him. He is good to me. He gives me a place to rest. He gives me food to eat. He gives me water, safety. He gives me direction and leads me in the right way. Not just, God, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? What world-changing, altering thing could I be part of? But even in the smallest, most meaningless seeming little things, God, where am I going to eat today? What am I going to do today? What am I going to wear? What should I drink? When should I go? How should I go? And God is concerned with all of that. And if we gave that all to him, we might find that those more important things in our world and in our lives actually start getting led by God as well. If we would give him the little things, maybe he'd trust us with a little more information on how to do the big important stuff. You guys, God cares. He knows what you need. And even when we're in trouble, even when we're in the midst of the darkest places, Psalm 23 continues, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Even when I go through the worst times, even when I'm in the middle of it, God, you're still with me. Nothing's beneath you. Nothing's too small for you. We need God to bring us through these things. We need God. It's not just, God, thanks for my bread that I took care of and I got it myself because I earned me some money and everything. Everything we have comes from God. God formed man out of dust and breathed life into them. The fact that you can take breath in your lungs is a gift from God. Every heartbeat is a gift from God. Every single thing in your life is a gift from God. And we take this beauty and wonder and awesomeness of being made in the image of the almighty King of the universe, and we turn it into something disgusting and broken and terrible here. We bring hell into the equation where it was meant to be full of heaven. And us in our life right here, we struggle. We do things to each other that are horrible. And we chase after things we don't need that give us momentary pleasure. And for that, for every breath in our lungs, for every bite of food we're gonna eat, every drop of liquid we're gonna drink, and for the forgiveness of every sin we've ever committed, we need Jesus. We need God. And so when we say, give us this day our daily bread, it's not just, God, I hope I have enough food to eat today. It's acknowledging from the greatest, most important things all the way to the smallest and seemingly meaningless things. I need God so bad. I can't do it without him. Another way to say this is we have to remind our hearts, remind our soul, remind ourselves that we're supposed to depend on God. So where in your life do you need to depend on God more? Hit us up in the chats and talk with the people around you. Let's lean into this a little bit. Where do you need to depend on God more in your life? So where do you need to depend on God more that you haven't been? For me, this is going to sound weird. I don't always depend on God as much as I should in churchy kind of things. I mean, whenever I'm writing a message, there's always times where I'm reading his word and praying. Obviously, I got to read the Bible because I'm, putting together a message around Bible verses. But it's too easy to just grab some verses and talk about them. It's too easy to not put enough time in really praying and asking him to be there in it. But even more, it's too easy to just walk into a meeting and not talk to God. And I don't depend on him enough in those times when I just have a meeting about stuff. Like right now, it's still on quarantine and COVID-19. We're still doing everything on video, right? I'm not having enough meetings that start with deep prayer, not just prayer. I pray for every meeting. But there's a big difference between God, speak right now and lead me in this, and just like, God, I pray that you be with us and bless this stuff we're planning, amen. You know what I mean? Like those are different, like to take the time to just open up my soul and say, God, I can't do this without you. You're praying about what color, couch cover you're gonna order for the student. I know, but I can't do this without you. To realize that I need to depend on God, that I rely on him, that my very existence is contingent on him being there for me. My existence, the fact that I continue to live every day is because God allows and powers my body. God allows me to breathe. God allows my heart to keep beating. God is responsible for this world continuing to spin on its path around the sun. God is the one holding it all together. He is the one who's the foundation of all of that. And if I don't acknowledge my dependence on him, I'm missing out on what else he could do. Because if I can depend on him for these meaningless things, for this silly meeting that doesn't seem like it has much point to it, much power, much spiritual stuff, but there's nothing that's not spiritual. Everything is spiritual. Everything is meaningful to God. Everything connects us to him if we let it. It goes like this. Let's look at another psalm. Psalm 139 says, you've searched me, Lord, and you know me. Not just you've searched me and you know the important things, you know the spiritual things, you know my calling and my gifting. You know me, you know the kinds of things that I laugh at. God, you know the kinds of things that I get annoyed by. He knows the things that I do that drive my wife crazy. He knows how when I look at the trash can, it doesn't really occur to me that it's like half overflowing. And when she sees it, she's like, oh, it smells and it looks terrible and everything. Why don't you take out the trash? And I'm like, I don't know, I forgot. And God knows that about both of us, that drives her crazy and I forget. God knows the things that my kids do that drive me nuts. God knows every weird quirk that you've got. God knows everything about you. He has searched you. He knows you. He knows the things you're into. He knows the things you like that you don't even tell your friends. He knows which of you are secretly really still excited about Fortnite. You just don't tell anybody anymore because it's old and lame now. And he knows which of you are like genuinely, openly excited about it. God knows when you get up and when you sit down. How meaningless and pointless and boring is that stuff? How vanilla. That's not Rocky Road. That's not like Triple Fudge Dream. That's bland. God knew when I stepped back. He knows when I step forward. He knows when I step left. He knows when I step right. He knows when I turn this way. He knows when I turn that way. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You know when I go out. You know when I stay home and Netflix on the couch. You're familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before. You lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where could I go from your spirit? Where could I flee from your presence? What part of this universe could I get to where God's not there? There's not one. Look at this. It says, Where can I go to get away from you, God? And not just away from you, not just like I can escape, but what could you be doing that God doesn't bother to notice? There's not a single thing in the whole universe that God doesn't take notice of when you're there, when you're doing it. Not one thing. Look, it doesn't matter where we go. All of these things are included. If I go up to the heavens, he's there because I literally just went to his house. You know what I mean? Like if I go to heaven, he's there. Of course, that makes sense. But if I fly up in the sky, he's there. If I make my bed in the depths, he is there. If I go under the ocean, he's still there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I fly across the sky, he's there. If I settle on the far side of the ocean, if I move to another continent, he's still there. If even there your hand will guide me, it says your right hand will hold me fast, the hand of protection and direction and control. If I say, surely darkness will hide me, I'll turn off all the lights. Nah, he can still see you. Way better than all those little like under the bed monsters you were afraid of when you were a kid. Like God can see you in the dark. God can see you in the daylight. God can see you when you got that like 80,000 lumen flashlight that like lights up your backyard like it's daytime. He can see you with those infrared lights that you shine on the scorpions with the UV light on the back patio. He can see you with all of that. It doesn't matter what kind of light. It doesn't matter darkness, light. Even the night becomes like light around him or around us to him. Night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. And even more, he knows how we're built. He knows everything that's wrong with us. He knows everything that's going on inside of us. He knows every rumble of our stomach. He knows every weird heartbeat. He knows every cough and sneeze and sniffle. He knows how every molecule in our bodies is formed and where it's placed and where it came from, where it's going. Even when we were being formed in our mother's womb, even from before we were born, God knew us and cared about us and took notice of us, and he shaped us and he designed us and he built us. Even all the things that you might look in the mirror and think, I don't like how that looks, or I don't like that this doesn't work right on me. Maybe you have some health issues, or maybe you just have a problem with something about the way you look, and God designed you and he knows you, and he didn't mess that up. None of that was too boring or small or unimportant for him to notice. He took care and built you a certain way. He's got a plan and a purpose for you. Every day of our lives, every moment, every thought, every heartbeat, every hair, everything, God is aware of. He knows you and he loves you, and he sent his son to die for you. Absolutely everything. There is nothing in this world, from the highest point of heaven where we say, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Let your kingdom come. Let that universal kingdom that oversees and rules the entire universe, the whole cosmos, let that be in charge right here. Let your will be done here, just like it is up there. In everything, be in control, Lord. I give you every crown. Give me my daily bread. I depend on you. I need you, Lord. And when we get to that place, we can recognize I need forgiveness, and I need to be one who forgives. And there's a spiritual battle for my soul, and I need God's help in that. From the worst things we participate in to the greatest things that God has for us, and everything in between. God is here. He sees you, and he is with you, and he has a plan and a purpose for you. So, will you live for him today and come to him and say, I depend on you. I'm going to live for you. Give me what I need to do this. And live for him with everything you have, whether it's boring or whether it's bold, whether it's big or small, whether it's huge and important or small and meaningless. Will you live for him with everything you have today and let him lead you and guide you in all those things? Let's pray this prayer today and open ourselves up to that. Father, I lift up my day to you. Would you deliver me? Would you grant me the blessing of daily bread? Would you give me what I need to take my next breath? Would you keep my heart beating? God, as I take a breath now, thank you. be with us in this time. Everybody who's hearing this prayer, everybody who's praying along with us, would you be with them? In every moment, be with them. Would you guide every step and bless it, prepare the way for that next step? Would you take every thought, remind us to point them back to you? Would you guide us in each of those thoughts and how to apply them to our lives? Would you take every breath? Let every time I breathe out, Lord, let my voice and my breath carry the praises and will of God in them. Let me speak life over people. Let me speak praise and encouragement. Let me speak hope and love. Would you lead me in every place I go? Would you guide me and give me the strength for every action that I'm going to do? Would you free me from every regret and point me into a better future? God, would you remind me in every moment that I matter to you? Remind every student, every leader, every adult, every human being made in your image that we matter to you, that you see us, that you know us, and you have a plan for us. And in this day, may the way we live every moment praise you and worship you and bring glory to your name.